Carl and Liam here from Games, Brains and Head-Banging Life, gbhblofficial for short, and it's getting Goosebumps. The Ghost Next Door, the third and fourth episode of season 4 of the Goosebumps TV series, and the 69th and 70th episode overall. And fascinatingly, we are going back to a very early days. This is the 10th book in the original Goosebumps book series, published in 1993.
Huh.
So we got back.
Well, only the 10th one. We're doing it now. That's quite surprising.
Yeah. This is written by Neil Shusterman and directed by Don McCutcheon. So there's those names again. They're not. They have been involved in this before, but certainly not names on a regular basis. However, like all the others, the cast certainly have been involved elsewhere. First, we have Nicole Dicker as Hannah Fairchild, Cody Jones as Danny Anderson, Neil Crone as Mr. Chesney, J. Adam Brown as Alan, Dov Teffenbach as Fred, Diego Matamorius as the shadow figure, the voice of the shadow figure, while Alex Faleas plays the shadow figure. Now, Dov Tieffenbach played Tim in season 2's Bad Hair Day. Instantly recognizable. I remember that. Weirdly, for a standalone throwaway episode, I can remember the episode really strongly.
You remember that one really well. Yeah, no, that's one I try to forget.
Fair dues. Well, Cody Jones might be a lot more familiar because he played Carly Brett's little brother Noah in season 1's The Haunted Mask and season 2's The Haunted Mask 2. So this is his third appearance.
Well, that's quite a trio he's got there. Some solid episodes.
But you may not remember this because it's only a voice. But Diego Matamoros, who voices the shadow figure, is one of our icons of Goosebumps. Because he played, because he played Morgrid in season 1's A Night in Terror Tower.
Wow, man, that's awesome. Which is interesting as well because there's another returning actor from A Night in Terror Tower in another episode upcoming, isn't there? So
there is indeed. So yeah, big names in this. And while we are about to get into the plot, I will explode if I don't say this. So I'm gonna lay this out here right now. This double is the best thing Goosebumps has done. It is the best episodes. I was so stunned. I got my wife afterward and said, "You are not going to believe what I just watched. You are not going to believe what I just watched." I felt emotional during it, people. This is incredible. The work put into this, the story. I'm so glad I've never seen it before or didn't remember it because everything. And while I mean, oh God, I don't want to go on, but my God, I love this. Yeah,
I'll just quickly add that on our site back in 2014, I have mentioned before how I did a top 10 Goosebumps episodes, and this was another episode that I placed within the top 10. And I do remember this very well. This episode, as I'm sure you will now that you've watched it. You're always going to remember what the twist was. So it was interesting for me to go back and watch it, knowing with that knowledge. But I don't think it hurts it by any means. Like, yep, I completely agree.
I will add there, you're absolutely right, because I think the twist in this is easy to get quite early on. And what I love is the fact that they don't try to subvert you with it. Instead, they take that twist and go, right, we're going to build on that and explain and do this. And that's what works for me. But we will cover this as we talk through, as we begin to see the young girl having fallen asleep in bed, watching something. And she's woken by a fire raging through her house. But then she wakes up again, having had a dream, but clearly freaked out by it. And we meet this girl. This is Hannah. Initially, I'm like, oh, wow, what crap. Oh, I'm not a big fan of dreams within dreams, as you know. Well, it's not quite that. It felt like that because the whole fall asleep, wake up thing. I was like, okay, fine. I guess we've got to introduce her somehow. But obviously, we knew this was going to come back in some way. She picks up her computer and writes a letter to a friend who was at camp. Hannah wasn't able to go because she suffers from allergies. Yeah, that's completely understandable. If you've got bad allergies, countryside ain't going to do you no good.
Yep, good reason.
But she starts to hear a voice calling her, so she gets out of bed and sees a shadowy figure outside. Calling for her mother, she runs down the stairs and finds the house empty. But she does find a note suggesting her parents went out to watch a baseball game. Looking at the window, she sees the shadowy figure walking around by the house next door. She then calls 911, but after explaining her issue, she can't be heard by the operator. So it's all very fast-paced, very mysterious, very odd. You might actually kind of struggle to keep up with what's going on. You're like, okay, we'll jump from one thing to whatever. Shadowy figure, a dream about a fire. She can't be heard. Your mind will be going overtime, but you can't connect things up.
I think it really does a good job of grabbing you, immediately, really piquing your interest.
Oh no!
911, what's your emergency, please?
Oh, hi. You've got to send somebody over here right away. There's something out there. I don't know what it is, but it's sneaking around outside the house next door. You've got to send somebody over here right away. Like the police or something. Okay? The address is 52 Cordina Way. It's the old Dawson house. You can't miss it. It's huge. Are you going to send somebody? Hello?
Yeah, because it continues as the line goes dead and a rock is thrown through the window. She runs outside and starts to hear the voice all around her, making her feel disorientated. So she starts to run down the street as the voice assails her mind before she falls over and a shadowy figure is in front of her. Fade to black. A strong, I don't want to say scary, but unnerving opening.
Yep, I agree.
She screams and buries her head in her arms. But it's a young boy who just starts mocking her. And she tries to tell him what happened. And it turns out he's new and his family have just moved in. And he kind of is like, I want to go see this scary thing, but pretends to be caught by it. Ha, ha, ha. One of those.
Yeah.
You dweeb! I can't believe you just did that.
I'm sorry, I couldn't help it.
So when Hannah goes to check, he jump scares her and points out that the shadow was caused by a broken kite in the tree. She obviously isn't convinced because, a rock came through her window. That's a kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
But questions him moving in next door to what is clearly been an abandoned house. And he introduces himself now as Danny, does a magic trick, then leaves. And it's like, all right, he comes across quite creepy. And this is important to the story, I think. It's a good setup. And it also feels so traditional Goosebumps, where you're just like, yep, he's a villain, he's a ghost, he's dead, he's a monster. You're just waiting for something.
It seems so painfully obvious where it's going, and considering the title of the episode as well. And they're clearly portraying this kid as being this kind of strange, oddball character, and he looks quite ghostly, I would say, in appearance. So, it's trying to throw you off some kind of scent. I do think you also get that vibe straight away.
100%, 100%. Back in the house, we see that the rock that came through a window was real, but she seems less perturbed by it now. But we then see the shadowy figure still outside calling her name. So we know she didn't imagine it. The next day, she's playing piano and reciting a recent letter to her friend, talking about Danny in the house. So a lot of this episode is done with Hannah's voiceover, her letters to her friend in camp, which, while initially I didn't care for, by the end I realized was such an impactful part of this story. This is what I'm talking about, the power of this storytelling. This, and like I said, you dismiss it first time, but by the time you get to the end, you're like, shit, that stuff was good.
True, and I don't think we've had this sort of like inner monologue type thing in too many episodes. Maybe I can't think of any off the top of my head that have had that, so that's also something a bit different and original, which is always appreciated at this point.
Normally, if we get any, it's right at the start, as we have a kid in the opening explaining the current situation.
Yeah.
Outside, the arrival of the mail gets her attention, but she misses the postman as he drives off. She's frustrated by it as well and sort of seems to suggest that the postman might be a bit of a dick. And she then sees a group of kids on a bike, but is able to ward Danny at the last minute from getting run over by the mail van.
Kids.
No.
She helps him up. The other two tease him, and then they ride off. This is incredible. But again, on reflection more than anything else. It's a good scene because you kind of like the cuts between, you realize that Danny's going to be hit.
Yeah.
But without going into too much detail later on, this is something when you look back on, you're like, holy fucking shit, how clever was that?
Yeah, like I said, so it's quite interesting you watching from a perspective of someone that maybe, you're suspicious about where it's going, but you don't necessarily know. Whereas with me, I knew beforehand. So watching back these little scenes and stuff, you really notice all the little details and you're like, wow, they really put a lot of effort in there.
Indeed. But she's particularly puzzled by the imprint he left on the grass. It is an odd shape. Her letter reciting continues as she starts to sneak around outside his house. Danny comes along and she wants to go in, but he refuses, but in a very suspicious way. And now we're kind of getting there. And he leads around the back, but disappears when she gets there. She then hears a voice calling from the basement, the door's being opened. She thinks it is Danny, but the voice is really deep. I was a little bit annoyed by her there. I was like, that's clearly not Danny. Like, it's clearly like a, come here, Hannah, that kind of voice. She stupidly goes in, the door is closing behind her. She looks around, the voice continuing to call for her. Eventually, the sound of a rocking chair leading her to a corner where the chair is rocking on its own. And it stops when she calls out Danny's name. That is, I think that would scare the shit out of a kid. And you know what reference it's going to make? It reminded me of Evil Dead.
Danny?
And you know
Very
what I'm
true.
talking about. Him reaching up with his hand in Evil Dead, and when it seems to touch someone, it stops dead. And I always remember Bruce Campbell, Ash's reaction to that, because he's basically just like, fuck this. That's what I got.
Yeah, because the notion of a rocking chair rocking itself is scary enough, but then to become to the realization that actually it wasn't just simply the rocking chair rocking, there must actually be something in the chair rocking it. That's pretty scary. Yeah.
And you got its attention.
Yeah.
That's the worst thing, yes.
That's scary shit.
Yes. Anyway, a shadowy figure starts to come towards her while it laughs maniacally. She tries to run away, eventually opening a door that leads back to the exit. The shadow figure approaches, declaring that she can't get away. Hannah, it does escape though, runs into Danny and now accuses him of being a ghost. She runs home, her parents aren't there, she tries to rationalize what just happened to her, but she isn't convinced. Ends up looking out the window and declaring that she needs to find out what is going on in Danny's house. All of this is so traditional Goosebumps that I think to a certain degree why it works so well is because you almost get distracted by the fact that you've seen this and you know she's going to get to the house and it's going to turn out to be something different, but still cheesy and silly and so on, that kind of thing. That's what this episode does well, is because it won't do any of that.
Yeah, you're waiting for the silliness to start, as it usually does with Goosebumps. But yeah, as you said, it's the fact that it doesn't do that is a surprise in itself. Yeah.
Indeed, indeed. Looking through the web at a computer, she reads about a fire that occurred in her street and took the lives of an entire family, which convinces her even more that Danny's a ghost. After, Hannah overhears the two biking kids talking about how Danny seems to have disappeared, seems to just disappear before they ride off. So we get that as well.
Come on, let's go. I don't feel like waiting around for him all day.
Yeah. What's with him anyway, Sometimes it's like he just disappears.
She goes to the house. A spooky wind blows and the front door creaks open. This sort of on the doorstep thing. Ever seen The Burbs?
Yep.
That's what I got. I got vibes of The Burbs and that house.
Oh yeah, I can see that.
Although The Burbs does it in a much more over-the-top, cheesy way. You know, the slow motion part with Tom Hanks and all that are approaching the house with that super epic music and that wind blowing across. Hilarious. Go check out The Burbs if you've never seen it. It's good fun.
It is.
She calls inside but doesn't get a response, and she goes in and finds lots of lit candles but no one about, seemingly. However, someone making shadows on the wall and noises from another room gets her attention. She finds a woman dressed in black, and Hannah tries to talk to her, but she is ignored completely. The woman is apparently making dinner, but Hannah checks the oven and finds it out of use. The house seems completely abandoned. She now thinks the woman is a ghost as Danny comes along. I thought this scene was really delightfully creepy.
Yeah, I liked it.
Wait a second. You're You're not listening to me because you're not really here. You're a ghost too. What are you doing here? Don't act like you don't know, okay? I figured it out.
And then we get the first of many moments where the episode goes, nah, we're not doing what you think we're doing. It's because Hannah lays out all the proof and Danny rebukes all her claims, including the fact that his mother is deaf. Now we can disbelieve that, but this episode doesn't want to do that. So Hannah tries to apologize and leave. And we then see Danny's mother turning around and seeing Danny's face, sign languages to him if everything is okay, thus confirming that his mother is deaf. And like if you're on steady ground already, I feel like this one knocked you over. You're like, well, what? Okay, so that is the case. Where are we going?
Yeah.
Danny goes after Hannah, stopping her at the front door, and they both apologized. And I'm going to mention here, these two together are absolutely brilliant. I thought it was fantastic here. The chemistry of these two, how they play off each other, particularly the depth in the script that's going to connect them even further as it goes along. I thought they were brilliant. They are watchable as fuck.
100% agree.
Hannah also shows them the printout of fire and promises to start acting like a normal person. She opens the door, is scared by the pizza dude who's just arrived. It's another Burbs reference for everybody who knows. And Danny looks over the printout and sees something in it that frightens him. And every little bit of connective dots I had fell into place here. Just fell into place, and I knew it. I knew what it was. I'd suspected it. I knew it. And now my excitement was, how are we going to get it? But also, hold up a second here. We're not even finished part one. This isn't Goosebumps. Yeah. This is the reveal at the end of the show, not now. We then see him chasing after Hannah, and he reveals that the address in the fire report is her house, and it burned down 3 years ago. He points out to him that is impossible. And in one of the best camera angles ever, points at a house. The camera just casually moves from where it was positioned before to reveal that a house is completely run down, clearly having been destroyed by a fire.
Because 49 Cordina Way burned down 3 years ago.
That's impossible. My house is right here.
Hannah goes to run inside, but Danny stands in her way and she walks right through him, revealing that she is a ghost. End of part one. And my jaw hit the floor. And I was like, oh my God, are we seriously killed her family, showed us the fucking result of that fire, revealed that she's a ghost at the end of part one? Where the fuck's this? Like, and I thought back when those two fell off their bikes, when Danny fell off the bikes, she was standing behind Danny. So there's no reason to think that they weren't talking to her, but they didn't see her. The mailman didn't stop because he didn't fucking see her. The dream at the start, and this is why I found this emotional, the dream at the start was what happened to her. That is horrible.
I know,
fucking hell.
Hannah, don't! It's not safe!
Yeah, I think this whole episode is great stuff leading up to that reveal, and it does a lot of things to try and put you off the scent, like I mentioned, but it starts to become a likely possibility, and I think it's self-aware in those that it's giving you little details here and there. And if you're paying enough attention, it's really clever in that way. It kind of reminded me of The Sixth Sense a little bit, obviously quite similar in that regard, where there are little details laid throughout, and if you go back and watch them, you'll pick up on little things, and you'll be like, oh my God, it's right there in front of you. There's one particular one you didn't mention, which is where near the end she answers the door to the pizza guy, and she says like, "Oh, sorry." She runs past him, and if you look at the perspective of the camera, it's so well done because she is again right in front of the boy, and the pizza man. He looks. The perspective makes it look like he's looking in the doorway, so it makes it look like he's looking at her, but he's not. He's looking past her, and it's really really clever. But yeah, like you said, the idea of Hannah and her family having burned in that fire and then having trapped for seemingly all eternity, and the charred remains of the house and maybe even her parents too. That's just such a crazily dark notion for Goosebumps, and probably the most serious, real life type horror that they've ever had up to this point. Yeah.
You nailed it there, because in my head I'm like, well, Welcome to Deadhouse might be the scariest episode for a kid. That difference here, though, is this is based in real life to a certain degree, aside from the ghost aspect, and that I thought was something we've never seen before.
Definitely agree.
So obviously we have a part 2, and we have answers to be given. So the truth now revealed. Hannah tries to argue against it, but Danny's frightened and runs off. She goes inside her home, and this is where, again, I just think they stepped up, but I didn't expect them to do this. And she goes in and finds it decaying, destroyed. It's a shell. It's incredible to look at. Amazing.
Yeah, like just the effort they've obviously gone to create this burnt charred remains of this house. It looks really good.
She tries to deny reality, but finds the rock that was thrown the other night and flashes back to that scene. And then we cut to sometime after, and she's basically been wandering her home, tries to pick up a teddy bear, but a hand goes through it. She's now accepted and convinced that she is a ghost, but remarks that she is alone. The shadowy figure now arrives and reveals that actually it's here to teach her to be a ghost. It tells her that all the things she's been doing were repeats of her life, and now she knows she's a ghost. It's over. And again, that's so horrible. Like the repeating of your life, the things you've experienced. And you're alone, and I'm here to teach you to be a ghost. And that's an element that is obviously used in the movie Ghost by Patrick Swayze, with Patrick Swayze and all that. So I remember sitting there just being like, what is going on? Like, just shocked.
Why have you been following me?
I must speak with you, and I didn't want to scare you.
What do you want?
To help you, to teach you.
To teach me what?
How to be a ghost.
I don't understand.
You said you mentioned ghosts, and I got that connection as well with Patrick Swayze and stuff. But that's a movie for adults. This is a kids' TV show. You know, you're touching on some pretty serious themes here, Goosebumps.
Yes, because our dark, shadowy figure will eventually have a revelation revealed that doesn't quite puts him on par with a certain other type of dark, shadowy figures that exist in Ghost. Maybe not as quite as terrifying, but there's certainly an edge to them.
Yeah.
She does declare that Danny's a friend, which angers the shadow spirit. We then cut to her knocking on Danny's door, but he refuses to speak to her. So she walks through the door and chases him as he tries to ward her off. This is hilarious. The grabbing of the garlic, the attempt to, like scare off the ghost and elements of that. It's good fun. It is, again, I'm going to use it akin to Whoopi Goldberg trying to get rid of a certain Patrick Swayze ghost. I do feel like there was a little bit of inspiration there.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't know what year Ghost released, and what's The Sixth Sense, for example. I'm pretty sure that came out in 1999. So maybe M. Night Shyamalan was flicking through one of his favorite R.L. Stine books when he got inspired for his own idea. Who knows? Maybe it's not as original as you might think.
Yeah, you're right about The Sixth Sense, 1999. Ghost was 1990.
Danny! Danny, why are you acting like this?
Stay back, okay? Just stay away from us.
Garlic, what do you think I am? A vampire?
Well, okay. got
3 years before this book was published.
So what you're saying is Ghost inspired The Ghost Next Door, and then The Ghost Next Door inspired The Sixth Sense. Got it.
Amazing. And it got me said as well that Danny's mother watches all of this behavior by Danny and is naturally very, very confused by what she sees, for a little bit of, I think, comedic levity to try and take a little bit of the sort of general bad feeling or sad feeling the episode has.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a really serious subject matter, but sometimes I'd be like, oh, Goosebumps is being too silly. It doesn't necessarily need to lighten the mood, but it probably did need it a little bit here, to be fair.
And we will also get a tradition here in a moment, because Hannah obviously wants to find out why can he see her, but he just has no interest in being involved. But watching all of this, his mother, through sign language, offers him a doctor. Therapy is back. Even in sign therapy.
Classic. That's the solution to all Goosebumps parents' problems with their kids. Just send them to the therapist. They'll sort them out.
I want an episode where one of the kids actually goes, you know what? Yes, I will go to therapy. And then the rest of the episode is just them breaking down the therapy, blaming their parents for everything.
That's true. That's the only disappointment, is we get all this talk of therapists and therapy. We never actually get to see it. It's a shame.
It is a shame. But obviously not getting anywhere, Hannah storms off. Outside, Hannah calls for the shadow and eventually gets a response. It's a bit gleeful as she agrees to take his lessons about being a ghost and wants to teach about haunting. So she selects the mailman as her first victim. And under the ghost's guidance, she is able to send his mail floating and sends his entire bag of letters into the street where he runs off screaming. And it does take it out of her, and the spirit suggests she will learn to enjoy this. See, that's, again, very ghost-like. The idea that using the energy to even be able to do small things like this will take it out of you, like your spiritual sense.
Yeah, it'll like draining.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with this scene. It's fun. I think the whole mail flying in the street is an easy trick for them to do. The mailman's acting is fun where he runs off screaming. It's fine. But she does wonder why she came back, and that she doesn't just want to pull pranks. And she decides she's got to find out why Danny can see her, which annoys the shadow figure again. And it's fair. I like this. I'm like, I want the answer. Why can Danny see her? So the fact that she's after the answer, it all clues up quite nicely.
Just don't say the words that he sees dead people and we'll be okay.
Sometime after, Danny is telling the other boys who don't believe him, of course. They insult him, and Danny tries to curry favor with them by getting Hannah to do something that she will prove that she is real. Inside the house, he looks for her and apologizes out loud for his behavior. That is enough to get to appear, but as she listens, the shadowy spirit tries to drop a beam on his head, and Hannah is able to push him out of the way and save him. I was like, whoa, okay, we're doing murdering kids. Banging.
Hulu with the child death goosebumps, Christ.
She agrees to help him, but later, and sends him out of the house. With Danny gone, she demands to know why the shadow did what it did. It is annoyed she interfered, but it now reveals, and in an incredible twist that again did not see coming, reveals that Danny's fate is set and that he is to die tonight. This will give the spirit a body a chance to be a ghost instead. And that part is a little nonsensical. I'm like, what? But I do think by the end, it will offer up enough things to make me go, yeah, okay, this is a demonic force that can't influence the world. If it can take and inhabit a spiritual body, it can become a ghost and then affect the world. And while it is a little too complex for children, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, no, I agree.
And what this does is explain why Danny can see and talk to her. It seems to be related to the fact that his fate to death means that he is closer, I guess, to the veil. And this has been done in other stuff. When you're close to death, they say the veil is thin between life and death. And you might be able, that's why it's suggested, whether you believe it or not, that people who are on their deathbed can see spirits and other people around them, even if it's real or not. But it's fucking dark again and very depressing.
Yes.
Danny's latest story to the boys goes down like a lead balloon, of course, and it seems as they're not going to be his friend. He has one more chance, set up a stink bomb in the mailman's house. That's a Goosebumps fucking part there. Stink bomb in the mailman's house. Okay, then. As Hannah looks out the window, she reflects on the Danny situation. She now wonders if she's back to save him and points out, again, an incredible thing that I didn't notice. If his fate was set, the shadow wouldn't have pushed the beam. If he was to die, why did it push the beam? She now thinks there's a possibility she can stop it. And in proving her point, the shadow tries to attack her, but can't, which ties into the fact that it actually has no actual influence. And it's like, oh, that's good. Oh, that's interesting.
Good writing there.
She now goes to Danny's but finds him gone. But she does see the address of the mailman and heads over there, stealing a bike in a really cleverly done scene again. Danny sneaks inside the mailman's house and tries to light the bomb, but is distracted by the sound of the mailman upstairs, seeing him burn his finger and knock over a lamp. Mailman comes down, obviously, but seeing his cat, he thinks that was to blame, so goes back to bed. And in a very clever touch again, locks the closet door where Danny was hiding. Danny, now locked in, tries to get out using the handle, but the handle breaks off on the other side. Now, what this does to me is it's amazing. Again, is the shadow spirit can obviously have minor influences here. I believe this was it. And its influence was enough to damage the handle to make it break off when Danny tried to use it, thus trapping him in the closet. It's just really clever writing.
Yeah, it's a nice touch.
Because the smoldering match has started a fire. And holy fucking shit, they weren't kidding. Now, I'm going to presume this is the pre-fire of the building we saw, Hannah's house. So basically, they built the shell and burnt it, and then used the burnt remains to do these shots of Hannah's house afterwards.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because this is a fire. This is a fire. This is not CGI. This is not fake.
No, yeah, that's true.
Hannah arrives to see the mailman running out of his inferno of a house, and the shadow spirit tells Hannah that it's over, but she goes in to try and save Danny. She uses her power to pick the handle up and free the boy, but he is unconscious, and she doesn't have the power to pick him up though, but comes up with the idea of playing the piano to get people's attention outside in an amazing callback to something she was able to do when she was alive. I'm just like, I'm sitting there going, this is too much. This is just too much.
Got to hold it together.
Yeah. Because as well, like, I'm also scared. I'm worried because I'm enjoying it so much. All I'm thinking, are they going to fuck the ending up? Are they going to be able to stick the landing?
Yeah,
that's what I cared about.
We know endings with Goosebumps can be very hit and miss, so that's the concern, isn't it?
Oh my goodness. Did you hear that? There's someone inside. Please, thank you. Oh. Hello? Anybody? Oh no. Come on.
But the mailman is able to save Danny and can only stare and wonder as the keys keep playing on their own. Outside, Danny comes round as Hannah looks on, and we see that midnight has passed. She taunts the shadow spirit that seems to be banished. So again, I love that. So the idea that this demonic figure had a time limit, had a, you must do this before then, before you're banished back to what is presumably hell. Love that.
Yeah.
Waking up, Danny realizes that he can't see her anymore. And she says goodbye. And in an incredible moment, the rest of her family now arrive and tell her it's time to come home. And she simply waves goodbye and her family vanish as Danny says goodbye. And that's how it ends. And my jaw was on the floor because this is not Goosebumps. This is not what we do. Where's the silliness? Where's the joke? Where's the twist? This isn't this. This is just task completed, moving on to the other side with her family who are all killed in a fire.
Hannah! Goodbye, Danny.
Hannah? Hannah? You've done a good job, honey. It's time to come home.
Goodbye, Danny.
I'm lost for words. I remember I said to Lou, what the fuck did I just watch? I told her the story and I said, I've never seen them do anything like this before. Nothing. Nothing. I couldn't believe it. For me, there are brilliant Goosebumps episodes. We know there are. This is something else. I would say to people, like, if there's one Goosebumps episode you ever watch, it's this. It's this.
Yeah. It's interesting that you keep making that point because that's what I put that down as well. I do think it is a really good showcase for what the show is capable of. You know, obviously, I wouldn't say, oh, this is what Goosebumps is to someone, because it's not really. Like, you'd have to show one of the more like silly episodes, but just to show that certain aspects, we're always mentioning in other episodes how they'll push the boundaries of like what is a kids horror show, and I think it is a good example of that idea that you can take something that's for younger people, and you know, they can still add a level of seriousness to it and a level of horror. And obviously with this, it's even more serious because, as I mentioned before, they're using something that's real horror, something that can really happen in real life, whereas other episodes they're more like, you know, unrealistic supernatural things or whatever. So it's even more scary for that by itself. But yeah, I think it's one of the best Goosebumps episodes because also it is quite a simple idea. You know, even though it's layered with complexity, it is essentially quite a simplistic concept. And yeah, it's helped greatly by some really high quality acting. I think that really does help seal it. And it's all around just a satisfying experience, I think, and a truly tragic tale. Yeah,
tragic is the word. You nailed some of the other aspects of what I'd want to touch on. None of this matters without first, we must say, O.O. Stein, you ultimately wrote the book. You wrote this story. You know, like let's not ignore that amazing of fact. But I would love to gauge his opinion sometimes on what episodes he thinks really did his book's justice and so on. And this is one of those where I'd love to know his opinion. Were you satisfied, or did you think it lost the core feel of Goosebumps? Kind of, you know, the way Stephen King, obviously everybody loves The Shining, but Stephen King hates that adaptation because he doesn't think it's reflective of his work. Would R.L. Stein feel the same? Would he be more like, no, I prefer the wackier, stupid stuff because that's kind of what my work was?
It's actually a really interesting point. I would love to hear his perspective on it. But I think like it feels like maybe whoever decided to put this episode together and like they were looking through the books that they hadn't done, they must have come to like number 10 in the series and be like, how the hell have we not done this one? Maybe because it was so serious tonally, maybe they decided that like because it's a kids show they wouldn't do it. But maybe someone was like, you know, this is the last season, this deserves to be showcased, and it has to be done across 2 parts because they could have tried to just put it in one episode and like jammed it all in, but someone obviously was like, no, this deserves a 2-part treatment, and I think it paid off.
It did pay off. I don't think there's a second wasted in here. This one, we've done 2-parters that really didn't need to be 2-parters, and this needed it. It 100% needed it.
Yeah.
It's The Ghost Next Door. We have waxed lyrical about how wonderful it is. Unfortunately, you may not hear this level of love for the final 2 episodes, but you know what to do. Check those out in the future. And for now, let us know what you think of this. Do you share this adoration? I would be fascinated to hear it. Comments, you know what to do, people.
Thank you very much for watching. If you liked what you saw, please help us out by giving us a thumbs up and hitting that subscribe button. If you really liked what you saw, consider donating to keep the website and channel running by buying us a coffee via our coffee page or picking up some merch from our Big Cartel store. You can check us out on gbhbl.com as well as via our social media, Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, as well as listen to our interviews via SoundCloud, Apple Music and Spotify. Just search for GBHBL. Games, horror and heavy metal. What else is life for?